Paint a pink triangle on our shirts as much as they like.
All of the people who've talked about fearing erasure have been transgender. So I don't think it's fair to accuse them of scaremongering.
No, it's perfectly fair.
Laura Hodge! Oh, get with it. How can anyone take you seriously? Yes, but I find it extraordinary that you would just, you admit that you don't actually know much about the decision.
And enjoy X. I suspect you'll feel very at home there these days.
No.
Okay, so, hey, have you liked the stream? Make sure you like the stream. You should consider liking the stream. So I'm going to have a look at this James O'Brien thing. There was actually there was two things, but I don't know if this longer one includes the second thing. So I guess we'll find out. But we've got LBC callers react to Supreme Court ruling on the definition of a woman. James O'Brien speaks to these callers about the motivations of those celebrating the ruling after other callers told James they fear for the erasure of trans people. Let's have a look.
It's a very dark day for feminism today because they tried to do this in America, ban trans women from women-only spaces, and the only thing they achieved in doing is having women that don't fit, cis women that don't fit these gender-critical narrative of what is a woman thrown...
This is bizarre already. They did this in America and all they've achieved. Those, executive orders happened 2 or 3 months ago. We're still seeing how this is playing out. And yeah, we've seen the odd cis woman that's been, people have been trying to kick some of them out of, toilets. We've seen the odd one where that's happened. But the problem is, people have been made so hypervigilant, partly because a lot of these trans women don't want to make an effort to look female. And they still want to access these spaces. They want identity to mean they're entitled to going where they want. And I think part of that is why people are so hypervigilant, unfortunately. And you hear the stories about trans sex offenders and stuff. They're rare, sure, but they happen. You shouldn't hide that kind of information from people. It's gonna make people more wary. Because of this trans stuff, you're more likely to have males in your spaces. Some women are made very uncomfortable by that. Some women are nervous about that shit because they might have had bad experiences and stuff. You have to keep that kind of shit in mind. Unfortunately, it's always gonna hurt someone, and that sucks, but you have to remember why this kind of thing started, ultimately. Hey, Amy, I hope you're good. I don't trust Brianna Wu much since she reinvented herself as true trans and pretends she never dated women. Pretend she didn't have all the hallmarks of a nerdy guy pre-transition. Yeah, true. Cringe. Me and my buzz cut have been fine, and being stopped is a small price to pay. Yeah, the other thing is, I'd imagine on the occasions when a cis woman, I hate using the word cis, but whatever, on the occasions when a woman, gets erroneously clocked in the bathroom, I imagine most of the time it's, oh, I'm actually female. Oh, okay, sorry. I'd imagine most of the time it gets resolved perfectly normally. I've been clocked once in a bathroom and it got resolved pretty fine. There wasn't actually a problem in the end. So it doesn't actually always end up in an argument or a fight or anything anyway. So I don't know, this whole thing is bizarre so far. We're saying all it's resulted in, well, the executive orders are a few months old. You gotta see where the chips are. You know what I mean? You gotta wait a bit. And trying to invoke Trump's America. I'm sorry, we don't live in Trump's America. We've come to this kind of conclusion in a very different way. So we'll just go from the start again because we barely started.
It's a very dark day for feminism today because they tried to do this in America, ban trans women from women-only spaces.
And this isn't really what they're doing. There isn't a ban on trans women from women-only spaces. You're just less likely to get away with using a women-only space if you're male.
And the only thing they achieved in doing is having women that don't fit, cis women that don't fit these gender-critical narrative of what is a woman thrown out of women's changing rooms and toilets. It will, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I do. I mean, almost bathroom bans affecting cis women with short hair or particularly tall or particularly...
I find that a bit bizarre, cis women with short hair. I mean, usually a trans woman wouldn't be going around with short hair, but I don't know. And we've seen a handful of examples of this happening. It's not an epidemic as far as I can tell.
Muscular, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I transitioned 10 years ago. I had my operation 8 years ago. I've been using changing rooms.
This person is trans, okay.
bathrooms, etc., for a decade.
So a male person is telling us it's a dark day for feminism. Don't know how I feel about that.
Without an issue. No problems at all. No one ever blinks. It's no problem at all. And with this ruling, it won't change a thing.
Like, how does this person look? They've been trans a bit longer. Might they have the kind of attitude that you really need to integrate? If you're going to be using female spaces, integrate as much as possible. The more modern kind of view is not always like that. Just today I came across this lesbian LGBT activist who looks so much like a man cross-dressing. You need to hear her speak to know that she wasn't one. R.I.P. ugly woman. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of issues have been caused by saying that male people can, for all intents and purposes, be women. You might say that whole thing was a mistake, and that this person is jumping in midway through the course of history on this, and choosing to treat it as if that's where it starts and that's where the problems are. When I don't know, the whole concept has caused a lot of problems ultimately.
I had my gender recognition certificate for years.
Yes.
And a gender recognition certificate, the sole purpose of it is to change your birth certificate, which I did straight away. So if ever I was questioned, I'd say, well, here's my birth certificate. Prove I'm transgender.
And what does your birth certificate?
Yeah, and the problem is changing your birth certificate is you're basically lying on your documents. You're lying about your sex. Should that ever have been allowed? I don't know.
Say sorry.
They're female.
So if we were going to...
Yeah, they're talking about bathroom bans. They're talking about the rule that men and women aren't the same thing. This is quite an incoherent call, to be honest. I think I do get their broader point, but we're a bit all over the place for sure.
I'm going to take Katie's point about the cards that she uses to access her gym. You'd have the same one that she has.
Absolutely right.
Well, maybe this will be the next stage of the legal action then.
Well, exactly. This is one step in one of many for them to try and erase trans women.
Okay, and now we're conspiracy theorizing. He mentioned Katie. Doesn't mean Monty, does he? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Funny how no one's debating about the definition of a man. Crazy.
Britain has already gone after trans.
That is not Frida Wallace, no. Frida Wallace doesn't sound like this. I mean, Frida has a different accent. They're from up north. This person sounds a lot more southern.
Youth to stop them properly transitioning. He's taken away. Wes Streeting has already gone after trans youth to stop them.
He hasn't gone after trans youth. He's trying to protect these kids from making decisions they might regret. He's trying to protect these kids from like sterilization and taking on an experimental therapy that might actually make them feel worse in time. Like the trans kids thing is a non-starter. I'm sorry. Let it go.
And properly transitioning. He's taken away their medical...
Properly transitioning. So you can't properly transition unless you block puberty? I guess I haven't properly transitioned there. Am I not a proper trans person?
Treatment. He's denied trans youth healthcare. So that...
Yeah, health... Like, Jesus Christ. It's not healthcare. It's like extremely experimental treatments that really don't have very solid evidence behind them ultimately. Maya. I'll try and be less mean about you today. But Helen Webley is a freak, to be clear.
So that children cannot live as transgender women, and that's the first step. The second.
Well, why would you want living as a transgender woman is something you should do if it's absolutely necessary? It's not really an optimal outcome. You're unable to have your own kids, stuff like that. This person doesn't sound like a transsexual. They sound more like a transgender individual. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know. They sound like an older trans person. They sound like someone that actually did voice training or whatever.
Second step is taking away all of our other rights, and they start in the court.
This is conspiracy shit. The next step is to take all our other rights away. Based on what? What if they just never do that? Does that mean you were just talking shite?
By the gender recognition certificate. They take that away, and then they'll go to the gender recognition certificate.
Yeah, with the executive orders, there isn't actually really one about bathrooms. I think they're making the connection that people are more hypervigilant about males in their spaces or something. I'm not sure. It's a bit incoherent, and we're already wildly going off into conspiracy theories, speculating on stuff that we've no idea what's going to happen yet. It really does a disservice to everyone else when you just say, oh, well, that means that the next step is this, that, or the other, because you don't know. And if you're wrong, then you've just been lying to a bunch of people on live television or on live radio or whatever.
Next. That'll be the next step. And it's all about erasure of trans people. But the thing is, we're born this way, Jack.
Yeah, we have no idea. And we're not... Oh, my God. Every time they say so many strange shit. So much strange shit, sorry. Often transgender people want kids to transition where transsexuals don't. I meant more in ideology. Okay, fair enough, I get you. Yeah, there's definitely an ideologue bent here. This is all the activist shit that I'm used to hearing. These people are all full of shit. I'll believe it when I see it. Most of the time, these people's predictions do not come true.
Next, that'll be the next step. And it's all about erasure of trans people. But the thing is, we're born this way, James.
We're born this way. Based on what? If trans is an identity, how are we born this way? We watched that Professor Dave video the other day. I put it as a video. I think last night, he made me agree with Vorsh. Didn't really appreciate it. Not a fan of Vorsh myself. Saying that like gender is innate, it's part of the brain. Well, we don't know that for sure. We don't know anything about that really. Gender is a social construct. How can you be born trans? It doesn't make any sense.
We have gender dysphoria, which is you're born with it.
Are you born with gender dysphoria?
They'll never erase us.
They don't know any of this. It's crazy.
We will as much as they would like to try to.
This person is having like a fucking breakdown. You need to calm down. Have a cup of tea. Talk to a normal person. Maybe James is going to help. I don't know. He's barely spoken. Let's see. Not some new law. It's just clarified an old one. Yeah.
The Erasure.
They can paint a pink triangle on our shirts as much as they like.
There we go. We're in Nazi Germany. Oh, it's painful. It's actually painful to listen to these people.
We're never going to go away.
The Erasure is the point.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you actually... I hope he doesn't actually think this. We don't know any of this. They made it clear that trans people still have rights, that there is still a protected characteristic specifically for trans people. They keep saying this new law isn't a new law. Yeah. We have to exaggerate harm as much as we can. We have to exaggerate what's actually going on.
This is just a stepping stone. You watch that, and the thing is that this group, the Scottish women's group, they're funded by right-wing activists from America.
I don't know that, but
this is basically Frida Wallace. They're funded by I don't know. Let's see some proof. At least he's saying I don't know that.
I'm not. I can check.
It's easy to find out.
I should probably know that actually, but as I've explained a few times already.
It's very easy to find out where the money is coming from, James.
No, I'm sure it is. I'm doing a mea culpa. Give me a chance. I never do mea culpas. I'm admitting that I should be across these facts. I'm just acknowledging that currently I'm not, which means I can't fully endorse what you're saying without that.
Listen, I'll give him respect for this. I don't know how I feel about James O'Brien. I watched one thing that was painful to get through. But I mean, I don't know. He's being honest here. That's good. He's not just capitulating to this person's mental breakdown.
Knowledge.
For sure.
But let me nudge you, if I may, to the question of why actual champagne corks are popping on the steps of the Supreme Court today.
Because they've gotten up a rung on the stairs, on the ladder, to have us erased.
Yeah, that's nonsense. They don't know any of this. These people feel like they've been discriminated against. These people feel like they got to a place where women are starting to have rights. From what I understand, lesbian rights are actually a fairly new thing. And now we're saying, oh, well, men have to get in there. There's supposed to be diversity quotas for women that men can still fill. There's some pretty nutty things that have been going on. This is just terrible faith. This person is either an activist themselves or has been listening almost exclusively to idiot activists like India Willoughby, etc.
The next step, they will be coming after the gender recognition certificates to stop us changing our birth certificate.
I run a charity in the South Coast.
I mean, arguably, should you be able to change your gender? Should you be able to change your sex on your birth certificate? To me, that sounds like lying on your documents, but sure.
Coming after the gender recognition certificates to stop us changing our birth certificate.
I run a charity in the South Coast supporting the needs of transgender people right across the UK, but based in the South. And you said many things I wanted to say, so thanks very much. However, I think the people celebrating on the steps of the courtroom today are probably lawyers, because it's an issue that you've actually really illustrated. It's not in the definition, it's in the detail of how you make this thing happen. So,
well, they're definitely not lawyers. I'm looking at the footage now, and obviously they are the people who brought the case. They may be.
They're lawyers. What are we talking about? Why do we have to assume the motivations of these people that are happy about this going on? Some of these people have been being treated like fucking bigots for saying sex is real. I think it's I said, I think it's a bit gauche to be celebrating this kind of thing. It's going to make people anxious and shit. But at the same time, I kind of understand it.
be sharing their champagne with their lawyers, but it's the people that brought the case and their supporters, of whom there are many, and they are today very, very happy.
They're right about the GRA. I think they need to go. It allows males to violate women's rights if they feel like it. Yeah, I lean towards that. I don't think you should be able to change your sex on your birth certificate. Like, we have to acknowledge that sex is not changeable, and that you can't just decide you're a different sex because you don't feel right in the one you are. Like, it doesn't work like that. And the amount of people that I feel have all sorts of other problems going on. We hear it all the time with trans people who have all sorts of other stuff going on before they transition. Do you not think that these people might be putting their problems, like projecting a lot of their problems onto their gender? Like, if you've got shit wrong with you and you can't like coexist with other people and stuff like this, and I know this because I lived this, like, you start looking for things that are the problem. You start looking for why it is that you're so fucked up and you're so unable to exist in society. And your gender is one of the things you might point at, you know what I mean? I only recognize Helen Joyce in that clip, not a lawyer. Yeah, these people just make things up. I don't understand. I don't know why you'd be sitting there like trying to assume people's motivations anyway. Like, yeah, they're happy that woman means female. Like, these are largely women. These are largely female people. There's people that are concerned. You see people like that Mr. Menno who are saying that they would have been trans if they were born later, which I can believe. I know lots of people, like, they sure as fuck weren't trans when I knew them back in like the start of the 2010s. Now suddenly they are. It's just odd. It's odd. It's always we exist, you're erasing us, Nazi Germany, or denying our humanity. Yeah, true. Hi, Pidartha, I hope you're good.
And there is an argument that presumes that there are two sides to this equation, where there are a bunch of radical feminists on one side and a bunch of radical transgender people on the other.
Yes.
And the reality of that's just not true.
No.
There are people like myself who can say it's important that there are women-only spaces where women can go and be safe from men who are coming to commit acts against them.
Yes.
Now, the people that come to commit the acts against them are very, very, very rarely, if ever, transgender women. And
how do you know? How would you tell who is a transgender woman and who is a man? You can't. There's no good definition of what trans is because it's just something you call yourself. Or if you don't call yourself trans, that means you're not trans, right? I don't know.
I think what we're doing here...
But they might say that they are.
Yes, but the evidence in the law and the case law doesn't show that.
No, that's
even
true.
Case law proved, cited by the...
Yeah, but the whole problem is, if it relies on you saying that that's what you are, then how do you know? Like, how do you get data on a group that is just people that say they're a thing? Like, that's impossible, right? So how do you know? We don't know, truthfully, how many men victimizing women are trans and how many are just men. Because the definition makes no sense as it is. 0% trans, I wouldn't have trans. I knew I was different from the other girls. I was in my own category since age 5. Yeah. I mean, geez, I was like, I was the right age, you know what I mean? So I did trans. If I was born like 10, 20 years earlier, maybe I wouldn't have, I don't know. But then people come onto it like later in life because they still can't get it together. And in all honesty, I probably wouldn't have had it together anymore if I was born like earlier. So I know it's tough.
The other side, the trans exclusionary.
But if you are, Lily made a point. I've lost her message about how if you are a victim of rape as a biological woman, then a penis is a weapon, and keeping it out of safe spaces is therefore a priority. And it doesn't really matter how disproportionate the statistics may be or how rare the actual instances may be. The principle demands a complete exclusion. The practicalities of
again, we're at least entertaining both sides. I'm honestly okay with how James is doing this. I know he's like soy lefty, whatever. Like he's doing okay. I don't mind this so far. Funny that India moaned gonna have to carry papers, but that's exactly what a GRC is. Yeah, it kind of is. Yeah. But India's nuts. India Willoughby is fucking nuts. So I don't know. If they aren't on hormones, just call them man. Hey, maybe. But then taking hormones doesn't make you female. It doesn't make you a woman by itself. You injected a man with estrogen every day for the rest of his life and he never knew. He's not a woman now. Because the point is that the difference is like identity. But that's not a good way to separate groups of people. I think a lot of girls who are bullied transition because they'll automatically have a friend group after struggling to make friends. Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Like, you don't fit in anywhere. This group of people seem attractive. Yeah, I can see why. I can see why. Some people need friends. Some people need community. They don't have it. They struggle to get it. They end up transitioning. Like, it's not great. I think that might be one of the explanations for why, like, autistic people are like overrepresented. That and the fact that like a lot of social norms are more likely to seem weird to you and like alien to you if you're trans. If you're autistic. And again, I know this because it's true of me. Like so many like things that people consider normal, I look at and I'm like, that seems really fucking weird to me. And like gender roles was very much one of them for me. Because I was like a effeminate guy. I was straight, but I felt like there were certain expectations, rightly or wrongly, I don't know. And like a lot of it made no sense to me and seemed kind of harsh for guys like me who are like more passive and less confident and less assertive, you know what I mean?
The actual instances may be, the principle demands a complete exclusion. The practicalities of it strike me as close to impossible, but I understand and fully sympathise with the principle, the feeling in principle. I don't want anybody like that in here.
But the other community of people we're forgetting are intersex people, who are people who have actual biological sexual issues.
I mean, one thing is, I would hope that there's like record of as much as possible of like intersex people. The problem is, often you don't know until they start going through like puberty or something, and the differences start to become more apparent. So it's tough, but then most intersex people still fit into one or the other. By the time you get into people that you can't easily sort into male or female, you really are getting into tiny, tiny minorities of people that probably have like quite a lot of problems to deal with as it is, you know what I mean? And at that point, they presumably have no biological reproductive function anyway. So it's like their sex is kind of null and void, and that's fine. Like, you want to make a null category, then fine. That doesn't mean sex isn't binary. And like there still is somewhere that most of these people fit in, you know?
Yes. So people who are born in one gender, for example, a female, but their testes descend during puberty. Those people are marked as female, but actually have all male genitalia. We have trans people who have...
Yeah, because mistakes are made, because intersex makes it more complicated. Someone comes out, you can't see, like, external genitalia. You're going to assume they're probably a girl. Like, unfortunately, that's how it is. Like, there is the ability for things to go wrong in your development. Things like this are going to happen, unfortunately. And the other thing is, like, when it's that few people, like, things like case-by-case approaches make a bit more sense. When people start wanting a case-by-case approaches for, like, massive amounts of people, it becomes extremely inefficient. But, like, when we're talking about such a small amount of people, I would have thought it's a bit more realistic.
Have different genitalia that doesn't work, for example, because you've gone through a form of...
But the court is... Look, I mean, the
chemical
court,
castration, for example.
The court will recognise this, and the court's challenge today was to determine essentially what a woman is, and they have determined that
Yeah, the other thing is, will there not be a lot of pre-existing, like, stuff around intersex people anyway? We've really just clarified a definition. So everything that came before still applies anyway. Just that if you were born male, you're not a woman. I know.
A woman, by definition, is somebody born into that biological sex. So
yeah, that's it. So does that mean, and how are they defining it? Are they defining it by the ability to have children? Are they defining it by having a uterus and fallopian tubes and such like? Because there are lots of women who don't have those things. Does that mean they're not women? And the whole... have children, are they defining it by having a uterus and fallopian tubes and such?
Well, that's part of what you define them as. If they don't have those, there are probably other things you can look to. You can look to their chromosomes. I mean, if they've got internal testicles, then they're kind of not female, so they're not really women, but I don't know. It's complicated because things go wrong, unfortunately.
Because there are lots of women who don't have those things.
They're literally proving the slippery slope. First, it was treated as if we're women. Then it's we're women or else. Then now India claiming to be female. Yeah, you kind of have seen that. It has ratcheted up over time. I've watched like so many people I knew become more and more radical over time and take on more and more bizarre like ideologies. More and more people, suddenly they're now identifying as non-binary and thus trans, but they're still exactly the same person and they're not going to change anything about themselves, which is very jarring to someone who has gone through the procedures and has gone through, you know, the actual pathways and stuff. There's been a lot of slippery slopes. Quite often, when you look at these activists and the shit that they say, you can kind of apply a lot of their shit back to themselves because they seem to speak from experience. They seem to speak from how they would do things. They seem to speak from what they can imagine. You know what I mean? So it's very easy to kind of track these kind of things in the other direction, I think. And it kind of boils down to that a lot of these people are just not that intelligent, really.
I mean, they're not women. And the whole subject becomes complicated. And all I'm hoping is that we see this as the beginning of the debate. And I think one of your earlier callers, a trans man, who I think are going to have bigger problems than trans women.
Do you? Why? Why do you think that?
Situation. Because actually, if you've seen a trans man, within about 3 or 4 months, a trans man looks just like any other cisgendered man.
That isn't necessarily true. First off, like from the kind of head up, you can, like, if they start growing facial hair, their appearance starts masculinizing, then yeah, they pass. You see people on camera. Yeah, a lot of them probably do pass. But then often you'll see like the body shape. You'll see like the hands and feet being a lot smaller than you'd expect. You might hear the voice. It might not go down as much as they think. I mean, you look at someone like Buck Angel. How long has he been on T? He sounds like he's on helium. I don't mean that as a diss. It's just kind of... He acknowledges his own high-pitched voice, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't entirely true. But trans men do tend to pass better than trans women in general.
There may be a height difference or a sort of a more useful...
But there's no public pressure to keep them out of gentlemen's facilities.
No.
This is true. Like, I'm like quite surprised here. I thought James O'Brien was going to be like soy as fuck on this, but he kind of seems to understand both sides. I'm quite impressed by this, honestly.
Absolutely not, and because, as you're saying, your argument is they don't have a penis. But you know that's understandable. I get that, but the social.
Well, that's not why there's no public pressure to keep them out of men-only spaces. It's because men don't feel threatened by trans men.
No, because their levels of victimization as well to trans men and trans women is vastly in excess of any victimization or hassle that we cause these cisgender populations.
Which is why Jack spoke about his discombobulation when he finds himself in certain circumstances. Can I read something that's quite offensive to you personally, or would that be unfair? I don't know how thick your skin is.
Why if someone born with 7 dicks wants to use the ladies' loo? Yeah, we're never going to get to the bottom of that, I don't think. Thanks for watching Nightrise 001. Have a good one. Thank you.
I'll decide how offensive it is, so
yes.
Carry on.
So Phil in Grimsby writes, ha, Gillian, quite obviously a bloke from listening to him speak for approximately 3 seconds. 2 sexes and wrong'uns, a victory for common sense and the good of the human species. That's from Phil in Grimsby, who is picking up on the timbre of your voice as a trans woman, but who obviously couldn't have made those comments about previous callers like Tara and Farah, who, at least on the vocal...
Wait, is this a trans woman? I just thought this was a bloke.
Dimension of transitioning have gone much further than you have. So, I mean, his point explodes even in the context of the last hour of radio, but these are the people who are selling. These are some of the...
I mean, the person calling seems a bit more sane than the first one, for sure. The first one is just spitting out all the activist talking points, just conspiracy theories, just baseless speculation on things that probably won't happen, at least certainly not to the extent that they're saying. Maybe the GRC will become a relic of the past, but then there's good arguments against it, unfortunately. Should you be able to lie about your sex on your birth certificate? What if you're in the kind of situation where, you know, a doctor or something would need to know what your sex is, and it's going to be very difficult to determine because you've had surgery and you've got a birth certificate that says female, but you're not, you know?
People who are celebrating today.
And I think it's interesting, and that's why I wanted to ring, because there are some of us who haven't got as far as others, some of us who haven't focused on voices, the most important thing.
I've been transitioned since I was 16, and I'm 30 now, so I look really masculine. The only thing you'd think is I'm sometimes a bit camp, but like I'm quite masculine. It's around.
I'm guessing trans man.
Around masculine men, I get really camp for some unknown reason.
Okay.
And I think I can kind of understand why they're celebrating. And I think part of that is because I did obviously grow up.
Here in the USA, we have Let's Call Them Hunters, who go after any marginalized group. Trump's statement about trannies is to say that these hunters go out and get them. I need to know more about what you're talking about. Like, what groups are we talking about? As Trump said, go out and get trannies. I've not heard anything about that. But hi, Francis Hutto, who'd be good.
Up as female, and when you've got a female body, there is that increased fear of what men might be able to do to you. And even when I started using the male changing rooms, like I was always worried, like, oh my god, what if they find out I'm trans and got the right equipment?
Yeah. So far, this person's okay
For them, and do you know what I mean? Like, puts me at risk. But when you look at the statistics, like that last caller said, if trans women especially were doing this, it would be on the front pages of every newspaper. And of course, there's parts of
Well, it happens. Like, it has been in newspapers. That's the problem. You can have a look. There's like crime statistics. There's like, what was it that there was some study. Yeah, MTF transitioners were over 6 times more likely to be convicted of an offense than female comparators, and 18 times more likely to be convicted of a violent offense. Like, the reason you're only hearing about it once in a while is because there's just not that many trans people. But truthfully, male to females follow the same kind of patterns as like males. Obviously, the males are going to be the main ones you're seeing doing these things. There's a heck of a lot more men out there than there are trans women. So I don't know. I think this person probably just doesn't know about any of that. But then, I don't know. You have to kind of go looking for a lot of this stuff. If you hang out with trans people all the time, they're not going to be highlighting this kind of thing. You're not going to see this kind of thing. So I genuinely believe there's a lot of information that one side or the other is just not privy to and just doesn't seek out, doesn't see, doesn't get encouraged to look up. And that's a problem.
The community that do go on to commit really dangerous crimes, but that's the same for everyone. And having trans women not being allowed in these spaces isn't going to stop a predator hurting you, because, like...
Well, the thing is, if you catch a man in the women's toilet and they say, oh, well, I identify as a woman, you've kind of got less ground if they might have legal backing to say that and actually they're a woman. Whereas now it's like, well, you're trespassing, you're in the wrong place. We do not have hunters in the USA. That person is nuts. Francis, what I'd do is like maybe provide like any information on that. Listen, what you can do, you can join my Discord and like drop some links or something. Like if you're going to say stuff like that, I think you should probably provide some actual information rather than just saying there's people going around hunting down trans people. I've not heard about any of that myself.
They don't look at the door sign and say, oh, it's got a women's sign there, I'm not going to go in there, I'm not allowed, if they're going to hurt you. Do you know what I mean? So no one's going to the lengths of transitioning, all the stuff.
They're not going to go to the length of transitioning. They can dress up and like do whatever. And there is evidence of that. People say, oh, that never happens. But yeah, some of these names, Richard Rendler, Gregorio Hernandez, Jason Primari, you can look up these people. This kind of stuff happens now and then. Not good. Oh, there we are. Shocker, males are more aggressive. Yeah. We like to pretend that trans women don't follow the same patterns of criminality as males, but we do. We are males. It makes absolutely perfect sense that that's the case. And we need to stop coping over this shit. Yes, trans people are gonna do shit sometimes that people of their sex do.
Thought that. I've always thought it was such a. I mean, and the first transgender person I met was somebody roughly the same age as you, another trans man, and when they explained to me what they'd been through, I just thought no one would do this frivolously, or no one would do this mischievously, or just to gain access to a change.
You don't have to. You don't have to do any of that shit. It's about identity. It's not about transitioning. It's not about medicalization. It's about just saying you're a thing and taking on a certain appearance if you want to actually convince anyone.
Room and of course there are degrees of transition as everybody has acknowledged, but that idea that it is largely fraudulent behaviour seems to me to underpin a lot of the animosity and a lot of the negativity, and that's pretty grim. That's a horrible thing to live with. I mean, some people would say that effectively you don't exist in your current form, and that the biological female you were born as will be you. And
Roxy Tickle comes up a lot. I'm not familiar with that case. What's it about? To the best of my memory, there was an app called Giggle. There's like a lesbian dating app of some kind that didn't allow trans women on there. And this person like sued over it, this Roxy Tickle person who is trans. And she ended up winning. That's a very, very basic version of it. If you look up Tickle versus Giggle, yes, that's what it's called. It's Australia. You'll hopefully find better information than what I just said. But like this kind of shit peaked a lot of people. Like the idea that lesbians want to be around other women, that are women, that want to be around other women, is really not that crazy. And if they don't want males around, well, that's what lesbianism is supposed to be, is it not? I don't know.
Until you die, regardless of what you...
More women have been harmed by angry boyfriend barging into bathrooms than are harmed by trans women. Well, yeah, men are going to be doing more stuff than trans women because there's far more men than there are trans women. That really is meaningless when you consider like the amount of the population that trans people are. Of course, you can say things like, well, trans people don't do this very often. That's probably because there's not very many of them. You have to look at, like, on average, you have to look at, like, statistics. Trans women follow male patterns of criminality. I'm sorry about it.
You say, do, claim, feel, or believe.
Yeah, like, it makes me so angry that if I didn't have dogs, I would be getting myself arrested by walking into women's toilets all the time just to, like, annoy the authorities and be like, well, make a decision then. Am I illegal for being in there because I'm a man, so you do see me as a man?
Right.
Or...
Well, there's no law about them. You can do that anyway. You're just probably going to make people uncomfortable. Like, why would you want to force a law like this? It's probably going to backswing. It's probably going to go the way you don't want it to go. I don't get this, man. This person seemed kind of sensible to start with, but they're starting to lose me.
Well, am I biologically female and then I haven't broken the law? So, do you know what I mean? But
There's no law about this. You're a trans man and you go into a woman's toilet. You're not breaking the law. But why the fuck would you want to do that? You can use the men's and no one's going to give a fuck. It's baffling to me.
Briefly confused by the mention of your dogs, but what you mean is that if you were arrested, there'd be no one to look after your dog. I just wanted to clarify that. I mean, at least we can all agree we all love the dogs, Jack. We all love their dogs.
I just feel like today science has prevailed because I've read some papers that suggest that trans women are only really... obviously their bodies are male, but in their brains they're only really 2 to 20% female. So they are mostly just male men. They're only really, women are only really obviously their bodies are male, but in their brains they're only really 2 to 20% female.
Trans women in their brains are only 2 to 20% female. What does that mean? There is no female and male brains. There's not enough evidence for that to say that. Like, your brain is the same sex as the rest of you.
So they are mostly just male men.
Like, does this person think you can have, like, a brain full of XX cells, but then the rest of your body full of XY cells? That doesn't make any sense.
Think they're women. They're not actually women. Thinking you're a woman doesn't really make you a woman. So
well, that hasn't changed. If that's what you believed yesterday, that's still what you believe today. It's not what the judge has... No, it's not what the court has handed down.
It's what the science says. There wasn't always science. This is recent science, so the science wasn't always there to support whichever view you had. But now there's some science that's been done comparing trans women's brains with...
why does it always go back to the trans brains thing? I thought this conversation had been had. I thought we all acknowledged that there's little to back this up. I thought we all acknowledged that. Trans people don't even want this to be a thing. WPATH does not tell people to get their brain scanned to check if they're trans or not. Plenty of trans people don't want this anyway because they don't want it to be a visual thing that you can see in like a scan or something like that. Because then people might see it in the womb or something and abort babies or something. Could lead to eugenics or something like that. Like, I don't know how much I'm fussed about that kind of thing myself. I think, like, what's more important, like, safeguarding from that kind of thing or like the pursuit of knowledge, I'm not sure, but like this is silly. I'm sorry, there's not enough good evidence for this. There's so much evidence that brains are like susceptible to all different kinds of changes and that male and female brains have far more in common than they do apart. A lot of the difference are probably due to like cranium size and stuff, and then like the hormones that wash through your body.
Heterosexual cis women's brains, and there are distinct differences of a magnitude such that trans women are at the most only 20% women in their brains.
How does that work scientifically? I've not come across this before, but what is the science exactly that measures?
Yeah, so they've identified some 100 or so areas in the brain that's distinctively different between a heterosexual cis man and a heterosexual cis woman, right. And then they've compared those areas in the brain with that of trans women, and they found that the trans woman has 80%. It's 80% like a man's brain.
Well, I'm obviously trying to do a bit of a crash course on it as you're speaking.
That is going to vary heavily. And like, if trans is an identity that's not physical, it doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. This makes no sense.
And the first thing I've come across suggests that studies on transgender women's brains suggest that they show structural and functional similarities to cisgender women in some areas, while also exhibiting differences compared to cisgender men. However, research on this topic is ongoing, and definitive conclusions about the relationship between brain structure and gender identity remain complex.
Yeah, the other thing is, from what I know about most of these studies, they're very small sample sizes. There just isn't good evidence for this. Maybe in the future there might be, I don't know. But at the moment, there's really little to go on. The way this person's stating this kind of stuff is, you're a bit too confident. It's a bit like that Mike Brigandy guy, like drawing way too strong conclusions based on not very much.
But not for you.
Well, I understand that it's ongoing and it's early days, but so far my interpretation is that if you put a percentage on it, it's 20% female.
Some research indicates that the brains of transgender women, particularly in areas related to body image perception and gender identity, show similarities to the brains of cisgender women, even in areas like grey matter volume and cortical thickness. It's not something I've come across before, but I felt I couldn't let what you were saying go unchallenged.
And I understand that, and I'm happy for any trans woman who passes as a woman.
And the first references I've seen to the science you're citing.
Yeah, so like, with that being said, like, why does WPATH not recommend getting your brain scanned? Why has no trans person I've ever met had their brain scanned to determine whether they're trans or not?
Do not support what you're saying.
Well, I've read the actual literature rather than someone's interpretation of it.
Yes, but this is your interpretation of it. So what? I mean, in a nutshell, why are there champagne corks popping on the courts of on the steps of the Supreme Court today?
Because today women don't have to fear predators entering their spaces.
I mean, again, this is also quite naive. The reason there's like champagne popping is because people have been saying this fairly innocuous thing that sex is real and that there are males and females, you're a man or a woman. And we've like turned against that and we've called those people bigots. Like, a lot of those people have probably been kind of treated badly over this. As much as I think it's a bit gauche, I can't understand it. That's why they're celebrating. These people don't think, oh, well, now no predator will ever predate on women again. Like, come on.
How will they be kept out?
Well, if they...
I could take the argument they'll make it harder. You're less likely, if you're caught as a male in a female toilets, you're less likely to be able to defend yourself by saying, oh, well, I identify as this, that, or the other. Oh, well, I'm trans. Well, I'm sorry, man. That doesn't make you a woman. Whereas before, you might have had more of a leg to stand on with that kind of stuff.
So law is not supporting it, and that obviously is less scary for women.
Of course, but how will the predators be kept out?
Well, that's another issue, but the law shouldn't be supporting them entering any female space.
No, I agree. I understand that, but if you're celebrating something specific that
any place allowing trans into single-sex spaces now risks being sued for violating Equality Act. That's fair enough, yeah.
Predators, to use your word, will be kept out of female-only spaces.
Supported by the law.
Which can only be a good thing, but how do you think the law will work?
I mean, it's implemented in different ways in different areas. I mean, you'd be getting into the criminal law and all sorts of things.
Just in terms of a space that you want to keep a predator out of.
Yeah, a lot of this will be retroactive, right? They're not going to start putting guards on things because that would involve paying people to do that. Companies already don't want to pay enough people to do half the shit that they are doing as it is. It's going to be retroactive. There'll be someone getting evidence and citing like these equality laws that have now been clarified. That's how it's going to be enforced, if anything. The only other way is women are going to be, potentially acting in the moment. But in general, that's not going to happen because a lot of them are fear for their safety. And that's one of the issues with the fact that males are generally bigger and stronger than females. Which is why we're not talking about like male bathrooms, male changing rooms, and trans men.
And of course, in this context, all transgender women are potential predators. So how are you going to keep them out? How are you going to...
At the pool recently, no one wanted to use either the men's or women's changing rooms. They were empty. Everyone was in a huge lineup to use the single toilet, enclosed handicap toilet. Shit. Well, I guess that sucks for anyone with like Crohn's or something like that. Why are people talking about brains? This is ridiculous. To be honest, I think we've probably come back round to the brains thing because we've got so little else to go on. There's so few arguments for trans being anything particularly real or tangible. But that's me.
police?
Okay, so I mean, in my gym, there's you've got to go through different barriers for the various different changing rooms, and it's based on
who checks?
Which electronic card you have, and that card has your gender in it on
not
it.
Not your biological sex.
Well, if they hang on, he's debate brewing a little bit. If they're given a card, then the person is giving you the card. Like, there's potential for mistakes, but I don't know, man.
Different barriers for the various different changing rooms, and it's based on
who checks?
Which electronic card you have, and that card has your
who checks? It'd be the person issuing the card, no
gender in it on
not
it.
Not your biological sex.
I mean, sorry, I meant it has whatever stored in the system, and with this law, it means that it would be your biological.
It'd be your name and the gender that you've told the gym that you have. So we'd have electric card readers on every changing room and toilet in the country.
Well, they do have at my gym.
No,
and there was a time in 2017 when there were men, mingling around, and
this isn't likely to happen. Like I said, it's probably going to be retroactive for the most part. Someone makes a complaint, someone sues or something like that under the Equality Act, presumably gets whatever evidence. I know, man.
Checking me out, and women, don't do that. I feel more comfortable with women around in some spaces.
Yeah, but they were men.
Well, yeah, but they're no longer allowed in my area now. Before, during 2017, they changed.
I'd like to know what his opinion is, what the difference is between a man and a transgender woman. Because that's one of the big problems, is there just isn't really a material difference. Because, if a man dresses up as a woman, but says he's still a man, then he's a man. It's about what you call yourself. And that isn't a good distinction, you know what I mean? I think it's interesting, the biggest voices supporting biology were lesbian community in the UK and MAGA in the US. Yeah, kind of. I'm sure you probably get plenty of gender crits in the US that lean left. I don't know. They tend to in Europe, I guess.
But under this story, you're discriminating against transgender women because of the actions of actual men.
Yeah, what's the difference? That's the problem. And it's the actions of males. And men means man. That means males. If a woman means a biological female, then logically a man means a biological male. So there's no distinction there. You're talking about males, ultimately. All the same.
Men were allowed in my space because of the law changes.
For some reason, they always gloss over the fact that the brain scan deviation in trans is exactly the same as seen in homosexuals. I said that weirdly. Yeah, I've seen some things about that. Again, all of it is very unproven. There's a lot still to be done. I think if we're going to start saying things like trans brains exist, and there is the problem that it might end up being like it's mostly homosexuals that you're deciding are the ones with trans brains. And then we kind of go back to, well, is it right that most of the people who are transitioning are just gay? Could they not be maybe happy living life as a gay person?
Yes, but they were men.
Yes.
Okay. It is the reason for the celebration is perhaps a little opaque at the moment, except as we've acknowledged. And
It really isn't. I perfectly understand it. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I understand it. Some of these people have been through a lot of shit just for saying that sex is real. Like, it's,
very helpful on that, except that the sense of vindication, if you like, or the feeling of triumph. Final question: why do you think the judge urged people not to see it as a triumph?
I always thought being homosexual is innate. That's the general consensus, because people don't know why they're attracted to men and not women if they're male, or vice versa. I would lean that it probably is, but I don't honestly know. I'm kind of speculating, honestly.
Well, I understand that trans women who, actually pass for women, a lot of their, it is sad from their perspective. I do feel sad for them. Okay. Because I understand it, but I think they should be allowed in if they've had, the operations and everything. Which
brings us back to the question of how you check, doesn't it?
Well, I think that, that's where the certificate comes into it. The doctor would be the person that would have checked that. I don't think people should.
Yeah, there'd be ethical problems, wouldn't there, with surgery being the prerequisite for a gender recognition certificate, I think.
demanding to see people's, penises or lack of.
There's one more. I don't know. I'm hoping it's not just another one of the ones we already saw, but I guess we'll find out. Let's have a look.
Joe is in Brighton. Joe, what would you like to say?
Hi, I just wanted to say that I wanted to reiterate what Lord Todd said today, that this shouldn't be seen as a victory for either side. Don't you agree?
I don't know.
Don't you agree that it shouldn't be seen as a victory?
I don't even know. I don't even know that I would say it shouldn't be seen as a victory. I can see why people do feel that way.
Why should there be a trade-off between women's rights and transgender rights? Shouldn't we be happy that Lord Todd explained how both transgender and women are equally protected under this interpretation of the Equality Act? I'm so worried that scaremongering about erasing transgender existence or allowing irreparable harm to transgender lives is going to sow panic among transgender people.
I agree with this a fucking ton. This is true. There's so much scaremongering around this shit. Like, we don't know what's going to happen ultimately. Your life's going to go on. For a long time, trans people couldn't get, certificates. And probably didn't have any kind of legal protections or anything. They still had to make do. There's so much bullshit going around.
And I just want to clarify a couple of things, because scaremongering is always unhelpful. Are you transgender, Joe? No, you're not. But all of the people who've made the point that you're addressing now.
One called Aaron.
What does that matter? Why does it matter? The fact that it's trans people doing the scaremongering to other trans people, that doesn't improve anything. In a way, that's kind of worse. These people are freaking out and they want other people to freak out with them. That's not good. That's not healthy.
No.
I'm so glad I managed to get through.
Well, so am I. But all of the people who've talked about fearing erasure have been transgender.
Yeah, that's not a good thing, bro.
So I don't think it's fair to accuse them of scaremongering.
No, it's perfectly fair. I've been doing it since the start of my channel. It's perfectly fair to accuse them of scaremongering. They're saying things that are unfounded, that they don't know that this was going to happen. They're scaremongering. That's absolutely fine.
No, I'm not accusing them of scaremongering because they weren't interpreting the decision as doing that. They were talking about fear in their own lives, and I'm saying
they were talking about the decision. So I suppose the question that we're asking, I haven't given any thought to whether or not I think this should be celebrated, so I can only apologise for that. And I'm not quite sure what Laura Todd has said.
Why do you think women are celebrating?
Why are people celebrating is the question I'm asking.
Why do you think women in particular, and men called Helen, we mustn't forget women and men called
lots of men. No, well, Alan was a particularly pungent example of a constituency. So, I have been told today that people are celebrating a step closer towards a society in which transgender people are not acknowledged in any way.
Really?
That's what. But you've heard the same phone in, Joe.
Yes, but I find it extraordinary that you would just you admit that you don't actually know much about the decision or what informed
I've been live on it.
Right. I'm having a stroke. Where are we going with this?
But the question,
why are people celebrating is the question I'm asking.
Why do you think women in particular, and men called Helen, we mustn't forget women and men called
lots of men. No, well, Alan was a particularly pungent example of a constituency. So, I have been told today that people are celebrating a step closer towards a society in which transgender people are not acknowledged in any way.
This is scaremongering. People are speculating wildly on what might happen next. They don't actually know any of this. Just because they're trans, that doesn't give that legitimacy. That doesn't mean that you should take it seriously, what they're saying, because they don't know what they're talking about ultimately. A lot of these people bank on the worst possible things happening because they're activist types. That's what they do. They're out of a fucking job if the best case scenario happens.
Really?
Well, that's what. But you've heard the same phone in, Joe.
Yes, but I find it extraordinary that you would just you admit that you don't actually know much about the decision or what informed
I've been live on air since the decision was handed down. But that's what the phones.
You just rocked up without really knowing it was going on.
That's what the phones are for. That's what the phones are for. I've been swatting up all morning, but I'm not quite sure what you're telling me.
Swatting up all morning. Well done.
So what else could the judge have done? Do you think? What were the other options open to the judges today?
Oh, they they could have done many things. You think, I don't understand the question.
What else could the judges have done? So they handed down a judgment that the Equality Act's definition of a woman is based on biological sex. It wouldn't have gone
They could have said it was certifiable sex rather than biological sex.
Yes.
There are many different ways that they could have ruled, but in essence, that's what it is. Can you tell me again who brought the case to the Supreme Court?
Well, is this a rhetorical question?
Wasn't it for Women Scotland?
Yes.
Yes. And who funds For Women Scotland on this epic?
I'm not sure.
2018.
Yes, they're crowdfunded and they've received a large donation from J.K. Rowling.
Not much by Men Called Ellen. I'm very upset by the way that this is being framed as somehow not not something done for women who are very concerned about their erasure, but somehow it's all about the erasure of trans people.
Yes.
And it is simply not true that it's
Yeah, I mean, trans people are going to put it that way, unfortunately.
About the erasure of trans people. And sowing more discord between women and trans people is incredibly irresponsible.
I think I agree with what she's saying here. Like, some of these activist types, they're very much making it a trans anti-trans thing and ignoring the fact that, you know, women are losing certain protections. Like, I think there's something to be said there.
Exactly the thing that Lord Hodge said should not be done.
Okay, but you're not suggesting I shouldn't take calls from transgender people in a discussion about legislation directly?
Not saying that, is she? What is he? He's losing me here. I think he was doing pretty decently on the other ones, but I don't know about this.
Addressing transgender people, then?
Of course not.
So what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting, Joe?
I'm suggesting that your editorial framing should perhaps give less weight to erasing transgender people and maybe a little bit more towards why women brought the case.
It's a phone-in show.
I mean, I don't know if she's expecting that he should, like, what's the word? Like, force people to talk about things a certain way. If transgender nuts are going to call in and make all kinds of crazy predictions about what's going to happen next and spew a bunch of activist bullshit, he's not going to, like, be able to stop them. People can call in and say more or less whatever they like. I mean, I guess she can disagree with, like, what the other people are saying. I don't know how much you can put that at James's door, to be fair. I think he's putting too much stock into what those people are saying. Like, just because they're trans, it doesn't mean they've got a leg to stand on by scaremongering people. And it's perfectly fine to call them scaremongers.
I can only work with the people that call me.
You have no editorial...
But he's right here. Like, what people are going to call in and say, like, he's only got so much control over, for sure.
Framing?
No.
How many times have you said erasing transgender people?
Well, I'm repeating what my callers have said to me.
Oh, you've had... Interesting how every comment on X is a woman supporting this decision, but you have...
Okay, we're starting to spurg a little bit. Like, I agree with some of the things that this woman's saying, but she's starting to, we're spurging a bit here, come on.
None called you?
Right, so you think we should be more like X?
Did I say that?
I'm trying to work out what you did say. Why did you bring X into it?
Because that's where some people are talking about it. Did I say you should be more like X?
Why did you mention X?
Because that's another place where people are talking about
it. And so is this.
A few more than you, I'm sorry.
Live and let live. The conversation on X can unfold in one direction. I
love the way that you're presenting yourself. It's completely neutral. I'm so neutral.
Okay, well, Jesus Christ, listen. This is getting ridiculous. This is a bit cringe. I'm losing support for this woman very, very quickly. This is not how you do this kind of shit. She's getting so triggered over, like, nothing.
And only going by what the people that call in say. You're not even slightly.
I've also read out a lot of text, and you have called in. I'm trying to listen to what you say, but and I mean this very respectfully. I'm not entirely.
Oh dear, not the very respectfully.
Oh, very respectfully. I'm not entirely clear what point you're making. So I've got 4 more minutes before the break.
I'm making the point that this decision today in no way erases transgender people. It's not, as you said, the first step on the ladder towards the erasure.
Yeah, well, it wasn't him that said that. It was other people. I think he should push back more on that kind of thing. That ultimately we're speculating. I guess he leans left. He's a bit soy. He's not going to question trans people too much. But I think to be more responsible, that's what I'd say. But this woman is, like, going nuts.
me again. That was me repeating a caller.
Yeah, because he's right here. It wasn't really him saying that so much. It was like, I can see the argument that because he wasn't really pushing back. Like, is there a tacit endorsement to that kind of stuff? But at the same time, you really can't say, "Oh, well, you were the one saying all this." Like, that doesn't work, does it?
I'm glad you've made this point, but is it fair to suggest...
It is not that.
No, but is it fair to suggest that what transgender people feel today is perhaps more important than what you and I feel?
Women feel?
Why would it be more important what trans women feel or transgender people feel than what women feel, when the definition of woman is what's been being discussed? That's nonsense. What are you talking about, James?
No, that what you and I feel about this judgment.
No.
Why would I can see why you'd say, well, because you're a man, you're not a woman either way. But like, it's nuts. Nuts. Oh, hi, Sherry Simon. Yeah, she's going nuts. I don't know what our problem is. You can just have discussions about this shit. You don't have to lose your shit. I criticize like radicalized trans people enough for this kind of stuff. Now we're seeing it on the other side. It's like, it doesn't make it better because I maybe agree with her a little more.
No.
Okay. In the context of how does this make transgender people feel?
More important than what I feel as a woman.
No, but you're telling them how they feel. You're telling them that they shouldn't feel as if it's erasure.
I'm so not.
No, she's disagreeing with them. Is she telling them they shouldn't feel that way, or is she disagreeing with them? You're allowed to say that you don't think people should feel the way that they feel. Not going to stop them feeling a certain way necessarily.
Oh.
I'm not. They can feel however they like. I think
you did.
No, it didn't. I said precisely that this ruling does not do that.
But they think it does.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so she thinks they're wrong. She's disagreeing with them. This is wild. I'm like a pendulum on this shit. Now and then she'll say something that's like, actually, she's kind of right about that. But then she's like spurging out so hard. It's kind of tough.
That's okay.
If they do, but
well, you know they do because they've all told me that they do, and you're telling them that they don't.
No, she's saying that they're wrong. That she doesn't think that that's what's going on. Like, they're both kind of baiting each other into going off on weird tangents. It's just so bizarre. It's the weirdest conversation I've heard in a while.
Go to the ruling, listen to Lord Hodge, and be reassured. Don't.
No, he's not playing devil's advocate. He is misinterpreting. Like, she's allowed to disagree with trans people who think that this is trans erasure. Because what's it based on? Like, where are they getting this from? Ultimately, they're speculating. And it's absolutely fine for someone else to say, I think those people are speculating about that. I don't think that's actually what's going on. I don't know. Her tone is very uppity. It's not going to help. She's needlessly combative. So maybe I don't entirely blame him for kind of also going off the deep end in the other direction, you know?
Don't be inflamed.
Well, we could have said that. We could have said that a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But we got there in the end. So go to the ruling, listen to Laura Hodge or Todd.
Laura Hodge! Oh, get with it. How can anyone take you seriously?
Well, I urge you not to.
Lord Hodge.
Lord Hodge. I thought you kept saying...
Why did he say Laura Hodge? In a way, I kind of see what she means. Like, don't you know who made the... Like, okay, bro. Okay.
Laura Hogg? I've read what Lord Hodge has said.
Do you know who Lord Hodge is?
Oh, that's why I was so confused, Joe.
Do you know who Lord Hodge is?
Of course I know who Lord Hodge is. It was Laura Todd I was confused about.
Yeah, you didn't think I was saying Laura Todd.
I promise you I did, but hey, you know what everyone else is thinking.
Maybe you misheard, I don't know.
So it doesn't matter what I say, does it?
Yeah.
Anyway, have a great day, Joe.
Yeah, you too.
And enjoy X. I suspect you'll feel very at home there these days.
Nice. All right, I just wanted to look at some of the comments. It's going to
Joe is in Brighton. Joe, what would you...
Going to keep fucking around on my playlist. I'm sure there's a way of turning autoplay off, but I can't find it anywhere. Maybe I'm just shit at using YouTube, I don't know. People didn't understand what she was saying. I understood what she was saying, but she's like spurging out so hard that it's really not helping her case. It's all going to be people... Never mind, you can go to your blue sky safe space after the show. Yeah, well, you've got Twitter for one side, you've got Twitter on the other. They're both fucking awful. I don't know why I have accounts on both. I try and not use them as best I can. Weird that trans men aren't fighting for their right to the toilet, because men don't give a shit, because if a trans man is starting shit in the men's room, the men are probably okay, they can handle themselves, on average. They're bigger and stronger. If a man starts shit in the women's toilet, the women are probably going to be more scared. That's how it is. LBC really is a disgusting station. No idea what this person is saying. I don't know. I think the jab at the end was a bit needless. We did get there in the end. The problem is you're getting very uppity when you could just kind of express your opinion and have a conversation. I wonder if this is someone that in general doesn't agree much with James O'Brien, so sees it as a bit hostile from the off. Who knows? James got totally outclassed here. She clearly stated a fact. The judgment is not stating transgender rights. So he brought it back to what people feel and states feelings as facts. Did he state feelings as facts? I don't think he did necessarily. Rad femme here. I genuinely don't get the fear-mongering. No one wants trans people to be oppressed. We just want sex-based boundaries. Also, they're still getting their rights here in the UK. Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I don't see like rad femmes as like an enemy or something. Like, I'm trans myself. I don't call myself a woman anymore because I don't think I am one. And the UK government agrees with me, I guess. But like, I think most people don't actually want to see trans people get hurt. They just believe in like biological sex. And well, you probably should because it's very apparent. Anyway, I hope you're good, Lamb. Good to see you. Yeah, brought it back to what people feel, states feeling as fair. I don't think that's fair. I don't think this comment is entirely fair. Made to look a bit silly. People could do that as insults when he's losing a debate too. Yeah, like if you're going to insult someone at the end, that kind of, it's a bit of a bitch move. But I think the problem is I can't really blame James O'Brien for not really understanding entirely what she was on about. She didn't entirely express herself well. I think I understood what she was saying. And I'm broadly agreed. I don't think it's right for him to say, oh, well, trans people should, it's almost like he thought that what they think matters more than other people. I don't think that's fair at all, considering it's about what a woman means. I think women are probably going to have strong feelings about that. It's probably fair enough, right? Anyway, I don't know. I remember watching James O'Brien talk about Brexit as a subject I fully aligned with his views, and still found him to be incredibly bad faith, just saying. I think it was Jack Jewell did a video about James O'Brien and Brexit. Maybe I should watch it, because from what I understand of James O'Brien, I probably also agree with him. I wasn't pro-Brexit. I still don't really know what the point was. I don't think it's really helped us in any meaningful way. But I don't know. Maybe I'll find some disagreements. I don't know. But yeah, there we go. Very, very split comment section, which is probably fair enough. I don't know. There we go, James O'Brien.